Hey there, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name's Ken Lear. I am the owner and operator of Out of the Pit Photography. I don't typically do videos, but back in September, I was given the opportunity to sit down with a gentleman named Floyd Sorensen. Just a quick little thing about Floyd. He is a 100-year-old D-Day survivor. He was a medic in the Navy, and he was part of the second wave on Omaha Beach. I felt today is the best day to release this video, being Veterans Day. So you're going to hear me in the video asking questions. My volume being right next to the cameras is quite loud, but it's only for a brief second. Floyd is 100 years old. He does have, a hard time hearing. But we sat down and I let him tell his story. Like I said, I asked him a few questions throughout. So the video that follows is going to be that sit down interview. The video is about an hour long, or the interview is about an hour long. And I did have to increase the volume. He is a little soft spoken. So I would like you guys just to sit back and listen to his story. Like I said, he's a 100-year-old D-Day survivor and just an awesome and great man. So here you go. Here is the sit down interview with Floyd Sorensen. Hope you enjoy. Okay, we're here with Floyd Sorensen.
Right.
Why don't we start right at the beginning? When were you born?
What year was I born?
Yes.
February 26, 1925.
February 26th, okay. And you were born in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
Pardon?
Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
Yep.
Right.
And your parents, what did they do while you were growing up? What did your dad do for a job?
What did my dad do?
Yes.
He and my uncle ran a meat market and a butcher shop and a food store in Oconomowoc for a number of years.
Okay.
It's called Vroman's Grocery, telephone number 133. They delivered food to the rich people around Oconomowoc Lake that came in for the summer. Paps, Schlitz, all of the big breweries, all had a place on Oconomowoc Lake. They'd fly in from their airplane, fly back to Milwaukee to work in the summertime. And my dad and uncle served them, my dad steaks and all that stuff, and my uncle food, delivered to the maid, and they prepared the food for the people, of course. And that went on all summer for about 4 months. And my aunt took care of the books. They never charged them a cent until the end of the service. And I can remember when finally those people closed up their places and had to pay their bill, how happy my dad was and how happy my uncle was, because they carried him for 4 months. And it was wonderful. It was good. And the rest of the year, they slowed down, but they still survived.
Okay. How many siblings did you have?
2 sisters and 2 brothers.
2 sisters, 2 brothers.
5 people.
Okay. And you went to Oconomowoc High School, and you played basketball, football?
Yes.
Okay.
I was a real jock in high school. We played we had a good gathering there on Labor Day, or the day before, a week before maybe, for my sister, and we rented a place in a pavilion in Oconomowoc that was just built, and that was built on the football field I played on when I was in high school. And the interesting thing in high school, we had a lot of people, a lot of farm kids came in and wanted to play, and we had good ball clubs. And my senior year, we won the Little Ten Conference Championship, and I was elected captain of the team. I played fullback. And I was, back in those days, you look at me now, it was a little different, you know. I was rough and tough, just like the rest of the guys. And we never lost a football game in Oconomowoc the 2 years I played. First year I was in one of the lower teams, but then I managed to get up, and being captain in senior year was really an honor because that was the first time Oconomowoc won the Little Ten Championship. And we had Beaver Dam, and we had some West Bend schools, and out of our 10 schools in the conference, Horicon was number 10, and Oconomowoc was number 9. So we were not picking to win the championship. So that made a big thing for me. And at the same time, on weekends when Wisconsin was playing football, they considered me a possible candidate to be a Badger. And I went up to Wisconsin for games. Harry Strudler, one of the Four Horsemen, was at that time considered to be the coach of Wisconsin. He never really got a chance to go because he couldn't get players. And they were going to send me through the Air Corps for 2 years in college, and then after that you'd play football or be a graduate of the university. First thing he did was give me a medical or a mental one for 3 hours. And I got done, they slapped me on the back. They said, "You did excellent on that. We're surprised that, you know, you had been able to handle some of that stuff, because some of that stuff was college stuff." Well, I took that with a grain of salt. Now we're going to send you to Chicago, and if you can pass a physical, we're going to put you in a program for 2 years at Wisconsin, going to class and playing football if it works out. I went to Chicago, got my physical. First thing they said to me after they got done, they said, "You didn't pass the physical. You're colorblind, you got an overbite, and you got some other problems." And none of those would, all of those would disqualify you for being, you know what you are. But you already are signed up and you're in the Navy. We could send you with the CBs where all you do is construction work. You'd never be overseas. After D-Day and so forth, I went in after high school football. I went into the Navy, and eventually they assigned me to 2 doctors that were on LST 285, and I had to go to school with these doctors for 3 hours with some other guys every morning to get medically approved for doing things we had to do out of during a time of actual activity on them.
Now, did you volunteer or were you drafted?
No. When I was a senior in high school, the superintendent called all the senior boys in a room, and he said, "We're going to give you boys your diploma if you go to service within 2 weeks now. You won't have to finish the rest of the year. You get a diploma." Oh boy, you know, we all clapped. "How many of you want to go?" We all raised our hand. I went home and I said to my mom and dad what was going on. My dad said he was kind of he was an early football player. In fact, they scrimmaged the Packers once in our Oconomowoc field. And he said, "You are playing football, you're playing basketball, and you're also playing golf." He said, "You're not going in until you graduate from high school, and your mother's not going to sign for you either. So that was me. So I had finished my senior year, won the football championship. I graduated from high school on Friday, and my papers were signed, and I enlisted in the Navy the following Monday. So then I started my Navy service.
Yeah. You went to your basic training at Great Lakes.
Great Lakes.
How was basic for you?
Basic, yeah.
Yeah.
And she's funny, Linda didn't say something, but the thing is, that Monday morning when I was enlisted in the service, I walked out of Oconomowoc down to this inner urban service, which took us to Waukesha, and I went all to join in the service by myself. And Linda always said some of us in the family should have been up to go and, see you off and all that stuff.
So you went to the service by yourself.
I went to service by myself. Wasn't that terrible?
How was basic training for you?
Nothing to it. They gave us an hour worth of calisthenics every morning and gave us jobs like chipping paint off the side of the ship and painting the ship. It was very dead because we had a complement of 30 men on that ship, 100 yards long, and it was dry docked at the time I was on it.
Right.
So we finally got out of New York Harbor in the water and were sent over to England, like all the stuff was going to England. England needed airplanes because they were being strafed by German fighter planes and all that stuff, and England was really in tough shape. I respected them. We got into England and they gave us each a booklet telling us about how to treat the English. They talk differently, and they're jealous of you because you get a good paycheck. They don't hardly get paid at all, and you have to respect them and so forth. And of course, the thing that I got a kick out of, the liberty we had in England, we went to a place and we got fish and chips wrapped in an English newspaper, and we were on one side of the street and there were always women on the other side of the street, and the thing we couldn't understand was the women never shaved their legs or never shaved their armpits, and that turned a lot of guys off, and they'd come back and they'd say, "Do you see those English women that read across?" We danced with them and they were sweaty and everything else, but anyway, the English women yell across the street, "Yank, you got any nylon?" And we'd say, "All of our nylon's going to parachutes." And then they said something else about, "Do you have an extra money?" And we said, "All of our money is being sent home." But it just was amazing how those people were suffering over there. And of course, at nighttime, complete blackout. And then in the daytime, they had, when we first went in, I went to Plymouth. That's where our base was. And Plymouth had balloons above it. And we said, "What are these balloons for? How long have you been here? Don't you realize that's holding this island up?" And what it was for the Germans were coming in there at low level, strafing, and you see the side of the buildings where they hit. And of course at night, complete darkness. But I also found out later on that we were making a lot of fighter airplanes, and that we had women wax and Navy people and Army women flying those airplanes over to Germany and taking and going back the next day and flying back and forth. And the part that the first women waxed, because there's no place for them to go to give health to somebody in a hospital and that they were doing that. And the little nurses later on, the nurses we had over there, actually were Air Force pilots and nurses at the same time. Just wonderful people, full of service.
So were you stationed on a ship at all?
Pardon?
Were you on a ship at all?
Yeah, I was on LSD 235 all the time I got over there.
Okay.
I got in New York City, and it took us 27 days.
So it was just called LSD 35?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went across from New York. We were in a big convoy, destroyers going around the outside of us. German U-boats were heavy at that time, knocking off the cruise, all kinds of ships in the Atlantic. And we went down to Florida, almost to the Cape, turned around, came back, winter time, rough weather and that. And we had a complement of, I think, about 50 men on that LST. And 25 of the men were black. And when I went into my quarters at night, I had 12 beds over here, 12 beds over here, black, white. Never had a problem. In fact, a lot of those guys I corresponded with after the war, and then we had a reunion, and some of them came and it was good to see them. But that was integration, early. And if I go back to Conomowoc and tell people that I was using the same urinal the black guy was, or I was washing my hands and shaving in the morning, and they thought I was crazy, But the service didn't ask. When we went in this complex and I saw 12 guys over here and 12 guys over there, I immediately, with a couple of my buddies, went over and said, "Hey, are you sleeping on this side or are you sleeping on where you're on?" He said, "We're on this side, you're on that side, but we'll give you a tip. Get the top bunk. Don't be in the bottom one because everybody be stepping on you, But we got along with them good. They were commissary, they took care of the food and some of the work, and we didn't have a damn thing to do. That was for 2 or 3 months. And going with these doctors in the morning, that really helped me because I learned a lot. And they gave me a lot of responsibility when I was on the beach, what to send to them right away, what we could wait 8 hours with, and a lot of tourniquets, a lot of rushing. 1 minute you're giving them service, medical service, next minute you're on the tail end of a stretcher, rushing them into the ship. Because at LST, when we dumped off the tanks, Patton's tanks we had, by the way, he had, different ships and different equipment on, but they had 100 infantrymen on that ship, and those guys talking to him, many of those guys started out in Africa and went all the way through Africa, Germany, not Germany, Italy, and down into where they were at that time. And they were, to put it this way, they were going to be going in the first wave or second wave. And they said, "We've seen this in the jungles and so forth. When we get these young 18 recruits of that, and we go into a new area that we're invading for the first time, they are trained, but they're not like we are. We're jungle smart and know what to do, and they stay in the front line, and it's amazing how many of the guys are shot off because they don't know when to get down and when to get up and what to do."
Okay.
And that impressed me because I thought, hell, I'm 18, I could be one of those guys, but I was lucky because I was in the Navy. because I always had a place to sleep. I always had food. And
So when you guys were in England and you boarded ship, when did you guys find out about the invasion?
right away.
Oh, you guys found out right away? Like before you even
We
left
know.
England, or?
We were out doing maneuvers all the time. In our particular case, those doctors were giving us a scoop on what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And the big thing, that ship, we had a hard time getting to our little place on the beach. The beach, we went to Omaha Beach on Red Beach, and that's where the Germans were up above in the compartment,
The pillboxes.
concrete with stuff, and had the advantage of heavier guns than we had and so forth. And we had, in the background, we had 3 battleships, I don't know how many cruisers and destroyers, and on this Saturday before the invasion was originally scheduled, we had all this equipment, all these ships out in the English Channel, and there's no place to go. You couldn't land the darn thing, and some of those ships were not wanting to land. They were out there trying to do something with their guns, and it didn't work. And those battleships were supposed to fire 16-inch shells that were going to go up in the air and come down on these beaches that we were on, and they were supposed to make a hole big enough for for foxhole, for protection for the service, so they have some place to duck. But when you're up above and shooting down, there's no place to go. You can't duck. And those poor guys that had LCIs, 40 guys on it, probably 60 to 80 pounds of weight, guns, sleeping bags, all that kind of stuff. They opened up the doors. The water was so rough, they couldn't get out. Some of them got out and tried to swim ashore. And what happened? We were there witnessing a massacre. That's what it was. Some of those LCIs had as many as 25 dead bodies on them before the big ship outside was pulling up in front of a place where the LSC, all these GIs, Army, were getting on these ships and going out about 2 miles to the beach, getting up on the beach, no place to go. They couldn't kill the guys upstairs because they had little holes there shooting through, and the walls were about this thick, So it was just terrible. So that was the second day. The first day, the water was so rough that they canceled going in, and these ships were out there bobbing in the water, and some of them hit the beach 8 to 10 miles from where they were supposed to go. But that weather made it possible for them to try to sit around. They'd turn the motors off and they're bobbing around like a cork. So what do you do,
Right. When did you hit the beach? You were second wave, right?
I was in the second wave, and we should have, as soon as the infantry got unloaded and started going up the side, we would get ready to follow them in and get rid of the tanks. And then immediately became a hospital ship. And inside the LST, plus all the equipment we had, along the walls, we had place for 4 stretchers, and high enough that the doctors could talk to the people and so forth. So actually, it was almost like red-green. When we go on the beach and we see a little flag, red, you better get over there, he needs help. It would be green, it'd be somebody who was hit in the arm or something or so forth, and could head along for hours or an hour, and we give them a syringe of morphine, and they'd go out. But if somebody needed an amputation and so forth, and the doctors taught us when that was necessary, and we'd take myself and my buddy, we were a team, because we had each half of
The stretcher.
stretcher to get him on the ship as fast as possible. So we'd go out and we'd see green, red right away we'd go to, and come back later on if we could and go through the green. But a lot of damage to your head and stuff like that, and it's stuff we couldn't handle. Even if the hospital was there, it'd be a problem, you know. So I would say that first day, until the weather calmed down, we were working on a terrain that was uncontrollable for us. And the thing that saved the whole operation was the night before, paratroopers by the thousands came in that whole area. And that beach, when you think of a beach, you think of 100 yards. This was probably 10, 12 miles long, just the American beach. Then over here you had the French and the French and
English.
yeah,
Yeah.
4 other countries in there, and they had flat ground. When they went in, the opposition was over here and they were over here, and that was like we were in the Civil War, you know, where everybody was on the same terrain. So, but anyway, getting back to those paratroopers, they came in and they had adverse climate to jump in, but they had to jump where they're gonna go, you know. The plane was going across, made it get out. They got out, and some of those paratroopers were 20 miles from where they were supposed to initially land. So what have you got over there at this time? You've got chaos with the American troops because there's no support coming from down below. Germans are still up here, and they didn't know where the hell our buddies were and where the equipment was. So I don't know if this is true, but they said that the American troopers all had a strong cricket, and by those hedgerows, the Germans were in there behind those hedgerows, and they're trying to pick off the troops coming up, you know, up the land and that, and they'd flip these crickets, and if they'd answer in a certain code, 3 blasts or something like that, it was American. The Americans had come over here, and eventually all those paratroopers got connected with their guys that got the heavy equipment for taking care of the Germans and something like this, and they came in from behind and surprised the Germans and took over those advantage areas that the Germans had and went up the side. Troops came off the ships. Some of them came in little boats because they couldn't take a cruiser in, but they all had a way of getting people off the ship. And then the big thing was the army men on those bigger ships got in closer and got off, and you got infantry on the beach, and the infantry went up the side, and a pair of troopers came in the back, and the next thing you knew, 2 days later, you got a hospital going up on the beach. The infantry's gone. It's quiet out there on the beach because the entire war at that time moved inland, and you had some of the big battles on the war. And as being in the Navy, we had to stay in the LST for I don't know how long, maybe 2 weeks. And then the word came out, Japan surrendered, you know, and all that stuff. And we're not going to send you to LST around the Cape over to the Wyatt Islands and get you ready for invasion in Japan. It's not necessary. They're done with their atomic bombs. So being in the Navy, because they didn't need me anymore, and didn't need a lot of the people in the Army, I suppose, too, but the thing was cut down the number of servicemen, send them home. They need help at home with the crops and stuff like that, you know, and we want to get us back in that point because our troops have had some big victories and things are going our way, and we're going to invade Germany from our side in the near future, and that's going to be, you know, our control. So I got called in by the Red Cross, and they said, you've done this and you've done that, and blah, blah. You're ready for discharge. Do you want to stay in the Navy Reserves? I said, no, I don't want to. I want to go to college and so forth. And I still had dreams of going to Wisconsin or some college and playing football. So I went back and I played football at Carroll College in Waukesha. I lived in Oconomowoc. I commuted to Carroll, and I played there 3 years. And funny thing is, we played the infantry in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a football game, and we beat them 6-0. And I had a good college career.
So after college, what did you do for a job after college?
After college, I had a degree. Carol gave you a degree, like you didn't really have to cancel or concentrate on one thing. You got a touch of German, a touch of this, and a touch of that. And when I got out, because I had connections at Wisconsin, not being able to play football, they gave me a consideration as far as my tuition was concerned. I had the GI Bill, I enrolled in Wisconsin, and I graduated with a master's degree in athletic administration. And I got through Carroll, or through Wisconsin in 3 years, because they gave me a lot of credit from what the doctors filled out on my recommendation and what they knew I could do. So that helped me a hell of a lot.
So you were in athletics pretty much before the service and after the service?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I had at Carroll I played football 3 years. We had a good team. I was elected captain of that team too. And that thing, just that little burp of college leadership and leadership at Carroll helped me in the service, you know. So I stayed in the service for about 2 months after I got a chance.
Okay. Now, Barb and Linda were saying that you never missed a single day of work.
No. But we worked 15 hours. First one, it was 3 hours, 3 days before you got a break. And what were you doing? You were checking bodies, you know. I don't want to tell you how many bodies we had in body jackets, and with half of their what do you call it? Identification. There are two parts. You got two of them. One went with the body, and the other one they kept and sent into the service, followed that body wherever it went.
Huh.
I have a hard time remembering that. But the biggest thing that hit me hard was where I made friends of the black kids or black buddies and the white buddies, and how we got along together. And when we were out in the North Atlantic, it was surprising how many of those guys got seasick. I never got seasick. And I was in the cabin with the cooks and so forth, helping wash dishes and taking food to this group and that group. But you got to know people pretty damn good, you know. And I woke up, I was after 4 days after Japan surrendered, they were building a hospital where we were spending our time, and that hospital was taking patients. Instead of we put them on a ship and take them over to England, we had nurses and every doctor's right there, and we had hospitals right on the beach, and those hospitals moved in, following the troops as they went across Germany and so forth. It was well planned, but Eisenhower, I think, in my own mind, got bad information from meteorologists and so forth that should have been probably postponed maybe a week at the least.
Okay.
Because that, you know, they said that English Channel was rougher. You really notice it on an LST, flat bottom boat. And an LST had no gun protection or anything, you know. It was not a fighting, it was a hospital ship, that's what it was.
Right. Did you have a good chain of command?
Pardon?
Chain of command, like your leadership and stuff. What was it? You know, a good leadership command, or did you not care for them too much? Like,
we had on our ship in the Navy, I mean, you probably noticed, in the Army too, we had these, we call them 30-day wonders. And they were officers that went someplace to school, came back and were gonna, you know, take care of the ship. Some are experts in maybe the office, the rooms where they had all the machinery and all that stuff. But most of them are 90-day wonders, we call them, you know.
right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or?
Well, I had, when I got done, I became athletic director at Brookfield East High School. Brookfield Central was 2 years old, and all of a sudden, because people were coming back from the war, and people were moving into Brookfield for Alice Chalmers, like in West Alice, and so forth, the enrollment in schools went up something terrible. And we, between the two high schools, we had over 2,000 students. And at that time, we had an athletic program that had junior varsity and varsity football, no freshmen. Freshmen are in junior high. But finding coaches, scheduling stuff, and everybody wanted to be in athletics at that time. And everybody wanted to be good students at that time. It was a serious time coming back. Those of us that came back, and of course, I showed you the pictures of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Iwo Jima, just think of that one place that the Marines had to go in and what they went through, and finally raised the flag. And when I first got involved with the honor flight in Menominee Falls. No, I got the wrong city. Anyway, one of the cities along Lake Michigan where they were able to get in and get out, and soldiers in and out. I don't know what I want to say. I guess it changed everything, you know.
Right.
Things changed like night and day. At night you had no darkness. You know, you had that. England had for years blackouts. And England had all their kids up in the northern part of Scotland, northern part of England, away from their families. Some of those kids hadn't seen their parents for 2-3 years. That kind of stuff.
Now, when you came back to Wisconsin after the service, did you have a hard time transitioning back into civilian?
No.
No? It was pretty...
I was... Because I didn't play the service thing up, played wearing battle stars or having a hat on or something. The closest I came to playing it up when I joined the, did work for the what's
The honor flight?
honor flight. In the back it said something about let there be peace on earth or something like that. And they said, were you in the service? And I don't say, sure, I was in the service. Where were you? I said, I was overseas. I never mentioned where I was because everybody that said they were in the service wanted to talk about their service people and what they did. And so many people were in the service that you couldn't find somebody at that time that wasn't. And if, even if you'd go to like Williams Tavern or someplace and spend hours and talk to these guys, they weren't talking about their war experiences. They're talking about what they're going to do in the future here and how they're glad to be out of it and we won or maybe we didn't win, you know. And I didn't spend any time outside of being athletic director and working my rear end off there at the school to get it started, hiring coaches, ordering equipment, a lot of stuff.
So you came back home, did your schooling, and then athletic director and right to work.
That's right. Yeah. Raised a family.
No.
And today I could say I got an excellent family. I lost a daughter when she was 50, diabetic and so forth, but and I lost my wife. But I found Barb, and I tell you, Barb and I are like this.
She is a Spitfire, I'll tell you that.
Huh?
She's a Spitfire, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a great time at lunch.
See, she spent probably 3 years taking care of her husband. And I spent 7 years going to the hospital from Harwood over to Lutheran Hospital, which was 5 miles away, but they gave us free transportation over. And I got over there at 8 o'clock in the morning, got my wife dressed, got her fed, got her ready for the day, came back to my place, took care of my stuff, went over there again. And the head nurse, who was my best friend today, of I suppose we could call it the hospital, called me in one day. She said, Floyd, I hate to tell you this, but you're bothering the nurses too much in the morning. You're in their way. We got nurses doing the stuff you think you should be doing. And we noticed that you look like you're losing weight. Are you losing weight? I said, well, I'm working out every morning. I said, you're doing calisthenics for an hour and a half. I said, No, I don't know if I'm losing weight. She said, don't come over here so much. Come over for an hour in the morning, but don't come when you gotta help your wife. Let her help herself. And that's so I pulled my horns in and read a book every other day and stuff like that, and tried to help some other people who needed help right where I was. But my wife went downhill, and she died within 2 months of Barb's husband, and he became very successful. He started out as a Catholic priest down in Warren, Ohio, and he was a young kid. After 2 years, he dropped out, and they both were in high school up to their junior year in high school, and she went her way and got some kind of a menial job, and he went his way, and they both came out, and they got married. She got married at 18, and I don't know how old he was. He wasn't much older than that. And she worked, and he wanted to go to school. He wanted to write books and stuff like that. And she supported him for I don't know how many years, but in a period of 8 years, they had 6 children. So she was burdened of the help of the children, and he was still in the Catholic occupation, but he wasn't in the one where he became a priest. So that went on for a year, and they got married. And eventually, he went back into education for the Catholics and that, and he worked his way up to where when he ended up, he was in charge of the service education department at Marquette University, PhD. He became a PhD himself and started making the big bucks, So he left her in good shape. He had good insurance, and he probably back at that time making $150,000 a year as a dean, And as athletic director at Brookfield East, I was an administrator. There was a principal, a vice principal, the athletic director, and a guidance director. 4 of us had to meet every morning for 15 minutes and say, this is what we got to do to get the school going, and blah, blah, I did that for 33 years. And that's Brookfield East and Brookfield Central. We go on them. We got the big gymnasiums, swimming pool, the whole tennis courts. Everything's beautiful athletically. New locker rooms. And the people in Elm Grove and in Brookfield were willing to support schools. It was good. And when I went to Brookfield East, they had just divided the borderline for the schools, the railroad tracks, this side Elm Grove, this side our side. Who the people were, and what happened, one side that Brookfield East was in completely in Elm Grove, so everybody was kidding. That's Elm Grove High School. Over there is Brookfield East Brookfield Central High School. So, I don't know. I don't know how you can make anything out of all this jumbo. But you were in the Navy.
Marine Corps.
What?
I was Marine Corps and Army.
Or you're Marine Corps.
Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. But in the Marine Corps, you didn't join the Navy, join the Marine Corps, see the world. What the hell did we see the world? I saw Germany. I saw New York City.
My dad, he always tells me, I joined the Navy to see the world. I saw Cuba and Canada. I joined the Marine Corps and I saw like 15 countries my first year, or my first contract.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
so.
It's not what they think.
exactly. I still had a lot of fun when I was in the service, other than, you know.
Well, I met a lot of nice people.
Oh yeah, some of my best friends are
Sure,
in the
sure.
service or I served with.
And I really resent the fact, not resent it, but I never kept track of addresses. And some of these guys that went home, and
Mhm.
I went home, and you lost track of them.
Right. Nowadays it's a little easier with like social media and stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
my dad, he reconnected with one of his shipmates a few years ago and stuff, and now they try to get together every year, or they talked on the phone, you know,
Oh,
and stuff like that, staying in
I'll
touch.
tell you exactly what you're talking about. When I was at Brookfield East High School, played football. When I was at Carroll, when I was working with all the kids at the high school, everybody knew me. I knew everybody, and we were blah blah. A lot of friends, a lot of good people. As time went on, and we had class reunions. Every year we had every 5 years they had a class reunion. Five, 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 five. 3 years ago we had a class reunion. Darv Winger was there. He died right after it. We had some women there passed away. Finally, a year ago, there's 2 guys in our class that are left. Now there might be a lot of people out there that never came to a class reunion, and we lost track of them. But the ones that came to the class reunions, the ones we knew, 2 left. My brother-in-law, Jack Wishman, who owned a farm in Oconomowoc, never went in the service. Every time he saw me, he apologized to me that he did go in the service, that I was in the service. I used to have to tell him, you waste farm stuff, gasoline, you know, blah, blah. But anyway, he said to me, he said, Floyd, you and I are the only 2 left in our class. I said, yeah, I know that. I said, I've been thinking about it. How are you and I going to class, have the class reunion and make it worthwhile? He said, I don't have any ideas what to do. He said, you always got ideas, what do you think? I said, I'll tell you what we're going to do, Jack. We're going to rent Winker's Tavern on a Saturday morning when the guys aren't working on that, and we're going to save free beer and free something else. Join us. Class of 1943, sponsoring it. Class of 42 and 44. All the people are welcome. He said, geez, that's a good idea.
That is.
And I said, yeah. I said, the enterprise will give us publicity on it. So about a month we're going to put this into action with the paper and all that. My sister calls me up and she said, Jack's not doing well, Floyd. He had a heart attack. He's in a hospital. I said, what? I said, he's not sick, is he? She said, it's serious. 3 days later, he died.
Mm.
So the big guy, I'm left, old guy in a class reunion. I thought, Jesus, I have to go and commit suicide or something.
Oh.
So that class is gone. So I went over to Winger's Tavern one night, you know, Darv was there, and he and I were talking. And he said, have it anyway. And finally, he called me up and he said, there's no interest in people coming over here with one person in the class to talk to, so we canceled it out. So I'm still the surviving member of the class of 1943.
From Oconomowoc High School.
From Oconomowoc High School, you know?
Well, Floyd, I want to thank you, you know, for sitting down with me today. It's been an absolute honor.
Yeah.
And
well, I have enjoyed meeting you too. Don't think I haven't.
And
just like when I met Bill Shorter, you know, he came by a number of times, and he and I went out for lunch. And anytime you're over in this area and you want to get something to eat or something, just give me a call.
I will. I will. I had an absolute blast, at lunch, learning about you and Barb and,
Oh, yeah.
the families and,
Yeah.
just sitting down and
Well, I love
I had a non-alcoholic beer, but,
Yeah.
you
Well,
and
I lucked out getting Barb. I've taken good care of her, given her a lot of good advice. And there's no reason for us to getting married. And she's had 8 kids, and I had a beautiful wife and a beautiful family. And what we're doing, we did travel a lot. Green Bay Packers, all that stuff, and I bought her some fancy Packer uniforms. And, she's really seen a different world with me, and I have been able to go back and cancel a lot of things. We'll repeat a lot of the things. The fire site in Fort Atkinson.
that was right down the street from where I grew up.
We've seen, I don't know, six shows, and 4 of the 6 we've seen before, but we do what we can do, and there's plenty of people around here that need somebody to talk to.